The DA's election strategy could be described as incoherent. The ANC is clearly spinning, and no one's scratching the surface of what its leaders are saying in public. And few know Julius Malema well enough to know what he and the EFF are up to. My name is Hajra Omarjee, and welcome to Political Edge. The enforcer, whore, controlled, backbencher, proxy. So many women in politics are described by those names, but it doesn't apply to DA leader Helen Zille. She's described as bossy, dictatorial, even Godzilla. All that comes from her general nature. Her decision to allegedly rule with an iron fist forced conservatives in the DA into a transformational agenda, push black leaders up the ranks within the Democratic Alliance, and take some big decisions unilaterally. Let's begin the conversation now with DA leader Helen Zille. Welcome to Political Edge. A madame is an mlungu who's moneyed and sees the world from a pedestal. Why would such a person force transformation in their political party in the manner in which you have?
Well, first of all, I'm none of those things. You know, I'm probably the poorest leader of any political party. In fact, I undoubtedly am. And I've never seen myself or wanted other people to see me as an mlungu or a madam. Only Julius is allowed to call me madam, but that's a special dispensation. I'm just an ordinary South African who's passionate about this country, whose parents came to this country when they'd lost everything, a country that gave them a chance, and I want the same chance for every South African.
President Zuma said this week the DA's MPs couldn't talk about poverty because they didn't know poverty.
You know, Jacob Zuma says a lot, but he knows pretty little. I mean, if you see some of the photos of the house that I grew up, some were corrugated iron walls. And my parents know what it is to lose everything and to start with nothing. I know what it's like to go to a school with pit toilets and barefoot with corrugated iron classrooms. I was there. So, you know, Jacob Zuma can talk for himself, but he can't talk for us.
Why do you believe, or why did you today say that Zuma's indifferent about the struggles of South Africans?
Because he's only working for a better life for himself and for his friends like the Guptas and other political connections. He is not working for those terribly poor people that even live around his palace in Nkandla. There are many, many more people unemployed now, or who have become unemployed under President Zuma. So many have even given up looking for jobs. And this is the tragedy. They feel left behind, and in fact they are left behind.
Do you disagree that South Africa has a good story to tell, 1994 to 2014, and that the country has transformed?
South Africa has a very good story to tell, 1994 to 2009. In fact, that story started changing here in Polokwane in 2007 already, when Jacob Zuma came to power. And since then, he is reversing South Africa's good story, and that is a sad story.
Now, we're going to speak about the DA's election manifesto in just a moment, but has President Zuma's administration done nothing good? Look at the HIV policy, for example, the number of people on antiretrovirals today, and the drop in AIDS rates.
Well, I've always said that President Zuma's antiretroviral rollout, pioneered incidentally by the DA in the Western Cape, so only picked up our policy. The DA started it very, very early when we came to power in 1999. That's when we had the first antiretroviral rollout in South Africa. He continued that, and that was a good thing, but he hasn't brought down new infections. And he will only be able to take the credit for beating AIDS when he has a policy that brings down new infections.
Now let's talk about the DA's policies and what the DA can take credit for. You hope to create 6 million jobs by 2024.
Our plan is not for the DA to create jobs or for the government to create jobs. Our plan is for the economy to create jobs. And the economy only can create jobs when there's policy certainty, when the government is clear about economic policy, and when the government knows what it takes to create and to get a job. and enables the investment that will do that.
Now, since 1994, some have said South Africa has had pro-business policies, and yet a large amount of foreign direct investment hasn't come. What would you do differently?
In fact, in the Western Cape, we've attracted 1.2 billion rand of foreign direct investment since the DA came to government there, and we would like to do that throughout the whole country. And the reason is simply this. People believe that there is a corruption-free government there, that there is as much policy certainty as there could be in South Africa, given the fact that we can't change national policies, and there is a more educated workforce there. And so when those basics are in place, yes, FDI does come.
In terms of the DA's governance of the Western Cape, integration and transformation, is that a challenge? If you visit the Western Cape, a lot of the restaurants are filled by either white people or tourists.
Well, it depends where you go. I don't go to those restaurants. I go to restaurants for ordinary Cape Townians. We don't go to the upmarket restaurants, and many upmarket restaurants are completely integrated as well. Many places are tourist hotspots in Cape Town. There's no question about it. We've had a bumper tourist season, and you have to book in every single restaurant, often long in advance to get there. But the homely family places, oh, well, wonderful. They're just like they are everywhere.
Transformation in your party has been something you focused on throughout, something you forced, and something that seems to be yielding results for you. But what happens if you don't attract more black voters in this election? Do you think the Conservatives in the party might try to challenge your transformational agenda?
Well, we do attract more votes of all South Africans in every election. In the last election, we got 23.9%. It was a local government election. But in fact, there are only 9% of voters in the country. So you can't be getting 23.9% and only have white voters. It just doesn't work out arithmetically.
You, according to some analysis, you got 5% of the black vote in Gauteng's townships. Really, South Africans vote along the lines of identity. Why should they identify with the Democratic Alliance when its leaders at national and provincial level still remain largely white?
Well, that isn't actually true. Firstly, it's not true that we aren't growing dramatically amongst black voters. 5% is a five-fold increase from what we got before that. So that's fantastic by any measure. And also, it is completely wrong to say that the DA's leadership is largely white. Our national leadership has a very small minority of whites in it, actually.
The Federal Council, the Federal Executive.
The key leadership of the DA is myself, is Wilmot James, is Lindiwe Mazibuko, is Makashule Ghana, is Musi Maimane, and is Anshandrea.
If Musi Maimane doesn't succeed as Gauteng Premier, will he be taken to national, or will he go back to the city of Johannesburg?
That'll be his choice.
Okay. In terms of corruption, it's another big part of your manifesto. You say you will open meetings where tenders are decided to ensure the public are included and can view the processes unfolding. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, that's how we killed corruption in Cape Town. All we did, and it was terribly corrupt, the tender allocation system, all we did was to open it up so that people could scrutinize it. And when they did, the corruption vanished because it couldn't be covered up.